from Pandora, I'd like you to listen, okay? So as I'm driving, I'm like, how am I going to bring value to this contact? Because besides that, I think Pandora's a great idea, right? It was a commuter market, lock those people in by their zip code, sounds great. So I show up, and luckily Lee was invited as well as someone that's worked with them for almost 20 years. And within 10 minutes, he had the Pandora guy so spun up by asking just very factual, simple questions. And it was questions he wasn't used to being asked or answering. And I thought, that's something that I would want, I would want it to know and I would like to share. So that's why we brought Lee here. So hopefully same thing, you can pick up some of those nice key little questions and tips that might help you in your dealer contacts. So enjoy and have a good day.
Thank you, Suzanne. Good morning. All right, so bear with me while I adjust the microphone so it's not so damn loud. Is that a little better? More natural? All right. So yeah, Suzanne said, we met in a digital marketing meeting at one of the stores, one of the Honda stores that I've been in now for 17, 18 years. Same store, they've been a client of mine, I've been handling all their digital marketing for this entire time. We hit number one for internet sales 3 years in our state, number one and number two, and number two and number three in the nation during that time. And this was during one of those years was on the tail end of the recession. So it's easy to be great in great times. We were great in hard times. So still seems a little loud. Let's see. Is that a little better? All right. It's good, Suzanne? All right. If the boss is happy, then we're all happy. So I get called out to this meeting. I said, okay, it's standard fare for me to come out to these sort of meetings. And I didn't see McKittrick's presentation this morning, but on Tuesday he said a great thing that I think applies here. He said that he views your roles as DSMs and area managers moving from being fact checkers, just going, hey, did you meet your objective? Maybe it's allocation of units, things of this nature, really moving from that into being consultants. And I'm sure some of you can think of some of the dealers in your areas that are maybe in the middle of the road, but they're very receptive to your ideas and new things that you bring to the table to help them sell and hit their objectives. Obviously, if they hit their objectives, then it's easier for you to hit your objectives. So Suzanne and I come into this meeting with Pandora rep, and they were expecting, I think, to be able to kind of talk over everyone's head in the room and use vocabulary terms that auto dealers wouldn't be familiar with. And I took it back down to just a base level and started asking questions regarding the results that we expected to receive. Started asking for things like references. Was there maybe one or two other dealers that you work with? I said, oh yeah, we work with lots of dealers. We maybe call on one of them and hear about the great results that they've gotten with your campaign. And he said, oh no, I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to tell you about any of the other Honda stores that I'm working with. He asked who I was. I told him who I was. He asked who Suzanne was. I said, well, Suzanne is the head of the zone here. So any information that you have about any Honda dealers in the LA market, there's a high probability that they report to Suzanne. And so I began to just ask him some base level questions. How long had he been with Pandora? He said he'd been there for 5 years. I've been with Pandora for 5 years. Just took a deep breath. I said, that's awesome. I said, so do you know Tim? And he said, Tim who? There's over 2,000 people at Pandora. I said, Tim Westrom. He goes, not everyone knows Tim Westrom. That's the founder of Pandora. So he looked at me and goes, do you know Tim? So as a matter of fact, I just had beers with him in San Francisco last Friday. He was a keynote speaker at my friend Sam's convention, which goes on tomorrow, called HustleCon. After the event, I was invited to go have beers with some of the other speakers. So we're not buddies, but I had factually had beers with him the week before, kind of toasted with him and said, hey. So he was just really spun up. And I was asking him questions like, how many impressions are we expected to get? So I said, how many leads do you think we'll get? How many cars do you think this campaign will sell? And he said, I don't know how many cars it's going to sell, but it does well because we've got dealers that continuously renew month after month. Now, this was a $10,000 a month campaign in a commuter market, with a 6-month commitment. So he's basically looking for $60,000, which isn't a lot of money in the scheme of things. But he couldn't tell us how many cars we were going to sell. So based on our projections, because he didn't have anybody that could tell us the great results that they got, I had to rely on statistics. Now Jay-Z's got a great quote. I don't know if he came up with it originally, but it's, people lie, numbers don't. So I looked at known percentages that I keep off the top of my head. I'll give you some of those percentages today. And we were very quickly able to ascertain that if we hit 100,000 impressions, at a 1% to 2% click-through rate, we would get roughly 1,500 to 2,000 visitors to the website. So I said, let's go on the high side. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So let's say 2,000. So out of those 2,000 people, if we can then convert at a 3% ratio, we can expect to get 60 leads. Now, the average close ratio for leads in Honda right now is 11%. So that means, just to make the math easy, it's early, we'll just call it 10%. So 60 leads would then generate 6 car sales. So I let him know, I said, if everything goes according to plan here, it would cost us $10,000 to move 6 units. And the math doesn't work for us. And he was very upset by this. He said, I happen to know for a fact that you guys are making all the money on every one of these cars. And if you sold 2 cars, that's probably 10 grand in profit. I don't get in the habit of counting people's money. I think it's bad for them. But I said, no, actually, the cost per sale needs to be about 10% of the back-end profit. Now, I'm sure you guys know about how much profit your dealers are making. Let's say it's $2,000. So 10% of $2,000, that's $200. 6 cars, that's $1,200. So we've got about $8,800 too high on this deal. We spent $1,200 all day to sell 6 cars. And maybe we could spend $5 grand to sell 6 cars. It really depends on the market. But I said, the math doesn't work. And he started to get upset. He said, I didn't come here for this. Who are you? I said, well, I told you before, I've been in the store for 17 years. I handle their digital marketing. I said, but here's the thing. We work with, 30, 40 dealers. I was hoping today that I'd learn something and see a new channel that would work for my dealers, and I'd be happy to introduce you to more of my contacts if it's going to sell cars. And he said, it was kind of the kiss of death, but he says, I've called on this dealer 4 times, and I've driven up here. He was from about an hour away. He said, I've driven up here twice. I can't continue to waste my time on the phone or waste my money on gas to call on this dealer if he doesn't sign this contract today. In fact, the rate's going to go up. And Susanna and I were like, wow, is this guy for real? Like, it just, the whole meeting just went totally unprofessional, we felt. But I told him, I said, I'd be your biggest champion. If the math works out and the statistics dictate that the cost per sale is where it needs to be, man, we'll do this. Not only will we do this, next month we'll double down. If we can spend 10 grand, we can sell 20 units, right? At a cost per sale of 500. We'd probably double down the next month and see if we couldn't sell 40 cars. It's just simple math. So you notice that although this is a digital training, I haven't really said much about algorithms or used any fancy terminology that you guys aren't familiar with. Give you a little bit of background. I moved to LA in the mid-'80s, early '80s. My mother started selling cars, and I grew up around car dealerships. So a lot of these guys, desk managers, became like dysfunctional uncles, And it was crazy because they used to do stuff like light firecrackers. We were in a VW store in Redondo. They'd light firecrackers and throw them at people walking on the sidewalk. It was like a peanut gallery. They always had the best jokes, which I was too young to hear, which made them funnier. And over the years, I developed some great relationships with some general managers and some owners in the LA market. And they've been mentors to me over the years. And I consider those in the auto industry that I grew up in, at the dealer level, to be like my tribe. So when I see digital marketers come in from these different firms, and some of these are very big name firms, and I see them overselling their product, making claims and promises that they're not going to be able to fulfill on, and taking money from dealers, which I consider my tribe, I'm offended by it. So what I'm here to do today is give you guys some tools so that you can sit in on any digital marketing meeting, be able to ask 3 magic questions that break everything down. And is it going to make sense or is it going to not make sense? I'll teach you some of the vocabulary so that they can't talk over your head. Once you use a few of these terms that I'm going to teach you this morning, then they'll be on their heels, like the Pandora world. Now, I happen to love Pandora. We have a lot of clients that are doing great with Pandora. In fact, we have some car dealers that are doing great with Pandora. So it's not a knock against Pandora and what they do. We have some clients that have been with Pandora 2-3 years, and we continue to renew their contracts because the sales are there to validate it. What we need to be careful with is dealerships that make vanity plays. They want to be on Pandora, so they say it, so that they can say, oh, we're on Pandora, we're on Facebook. That's great, but if it's not selling cars, right, then we need to pay attention to what the marketing budgets are and where they're allocating funds. By no means am I saying that you guys should go into dealers and tell them how to run their business. But for some of you that are in a half a dozen stores a week, 10 stores a week, or even 2 or 3 stores a week, that's more than the 1 store that they sit in every day. And I'm sure you all have dealers in your zones that are very receptive to new ideas and very receptive to you helping them out on how to achieve their objectives, right? And one of my mentors was a great guy, Ron Emard. Owned a Honda store. He's been in the Honda family since the 70s. He's a managing partner, co-owner of one of the Robertson's Honda stores in the LA market. He took me under his wing. And for a time, I actually had an office in his Honda store for a couple of years. I was there that often. So he had an interesting way of kind of managing his dealership. He'd walk around, we'd go to lunch on a regular basis, and we'd walk around and people would come up and say, hello sir, how's your day going? And he'd go, it's going great, sell some cars. And we'd always swing, like wherever we were going, he'd always swing through the sales tower. And they'd say, you want a lunchbox? And he'd go, yeah, sell some cars. He was very aggressive, like, sell some cars, sell some cars. You know, and he just drilled it in him. You know, and it was, what are we here for every day? What does everybody in this dealership, everybody in this organization show up to do in the front of the house? Sell some cars, right? And on the back, obviously there's a service center. They've got some different objectives. But he drilled it into me, he drilled it into everybody on his team. That everything revolved back to selling cars, and that's what we were there to do. So when you're in these digital marketing meetings, just remember that the focus of the program is typically going to be to sell some cars. And if you bring it back to that and you keep that in mind, it's child's play, right? So I'm sure some of you have sat in meetings where people are just, they talk over your head, they talk down to you, they use all these acronyms and abbreviations, and you don't know what they're saying. And chances are the dealer doesn't either. But then they say, oh, we're going to get 1 million impressions. Well, 1 million impressions doesn't mean jack if it doesn't sell cars. Right? And I'll show you why today. So for some of you guys in this room, you may know some of this information. It's low, some of it's going to be low-level information, but I want to bring everybody up to speed with the basics. So we're going to take it back to the basics. I know I'm looking around. It's a pretty wide array of ages and probably levels of experience. How many of you have ever heard this phrase? You can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Well, the dean of the University of Chicago was once asked what he felt about that when talking about adult education. And he said, well, human beings are not dogs, and these are not tricks. So I'd like you to consider that for a moment as we go through this. Now, I studied big data analysis through an MIT program. Everybody in here familiar with MIT? Those who are not, that's usually what they will say if they want to make someone look intelligent in a movie. They'll say, oh, he double majored at age 13 at MIT. He's a genius. So this is what they'd like you to think. I think for me personally, I represent this next kid probably a little bit. It's probably a little more. Can anybody relate? Pac Pro. Yeah. So we're going to jump into some great data from Google. We're Google partners. Our agency, Passing Lane, has been a Google agency for 6 years now, 7 years, somewhere around there. What that means is that we have advanced knowledge of new products. There's some great new automotive products that are coming online that we can't really disclose today, but they will in the next few months, so keep that in the back of your head. Google is really going to shake up the car buying process. You heard McKittrick, I believe, probably give a similar speech today, but on Tuesday he was talking about some of the programs that Honda's enrolling, and it's the idea that people in these different demographics are more comfortable or less comfortable online, and it comes down to how much of the process do consumers want to do online when buying a car. Well, I'll walk you through this report that Google and Booth Resources put together that talks about the key auto shopping moments. This was put together by a colleague of mine, David. And what we did was we analyzed data of people that we knew had purchased cars, because everything you do online is tracked. You'll have a pretty good understanding of that when you leave here today. Not just that it's being done, but how it's being done. And when they analyze the data, right, we don't need a crystal ball. It'd be great if we had a crystal ball as digital marketers, but we don't need a crystal ball because we've got data. And we can look at people that we knew purchased cars, and then we can just review the last historical data for 6 to 9 months, which is the average purchase cycle. And we can look at what kind of behaviors, what do they do online, leading up to that purchase. So then what David did was he broke these down into 5 categories that make it easy to remember. So one of the big things that came out of this study that really was shocking to me is the idea that 6 out of 10 car buyers actually enter the market not knowing which vehicle they're going to buy. Now that's contrary to popular belief, because we'd all like to think that when a consumer enters the market, well, they enter the market for our product. We'd like to think that if they had our product for the previous vehicle, that they're going to jump in the market and buy our product again, right? Well, for Honda, it's going to be different in different markets, but most of the markets that I am in, Honda has really strong brand loyalty and is really doing a good job of owning the markets that they're in. There's still room for improvement that we can go after. But 6 out of 10 car buyers enter the market unsure of the vehicle that they want to buy. So the first set of moments we call the which car is best moments. So they're really looking at what's the best car out there on a number of different levels, right? So what we found is that during these which car is best moments, that we can engage and we can make an impression because they're receptive. So we saw that during these which car is best moments, 69% of consumers that were in the market for a car who watched a YouTube video were influenced by it. So that's an interesting statistic. From the which car is best moments, we move on to the is it right for me moments. So the car it may be the best sports car in the world. Wow, that's the best car. But I'm a soccer coach with 3 kids and a bag of soccer balls and some cones that I gotta lug around. So maybe it's the best car, but it's not right for me. So they move into the what's right for me moments. Now what's interesting is in these which car is right for me moments, we saw that the time spent watching videos on YouTube over the last year doubled. And the trend, it looks like a skyrocket. I don't think I need to tell any of you in here that digital marketing has really taken off over the last few years, but it continues to grow leaps and bounds. So the 3 types of content that we see consumers watching are test drives. They're watching videos of, it could be professionally produced. One of our clients is Willow Springs Raceway. It's the largest raceway in North America, the largest track. Car and Driver is there almost every time I call on them. When I visit, Car and Driver is there filming a test drive video on their track. And they do this for darn near every vehicle that comes out in North America. And they put up these videos. Consumers love test drive videos. Now, it's not just the professionally produced ones by Speed Channel and Car and Driver and Edmunds and some of these other channels, but it's also just amateur cameramen, camera guys, camera gals, jumping in with their cell phone now, boom. You've got salespeople at stores doing test drives in their product. And we actually see that amateur-produced videos are just as influential, if not more influential, than some of the high-dollar, well-produced videos. Now, we think this is because of something that we call truthiness, for those of you that watch Colbert. It's the idea that authentic videos are more believable. They know that some of the big brands advertising Car and Driver, they advertise with Edmunds, they advertise with KDV. So although they do trust the information, they take it with a grain of salt. Whereas some of the amateur-produced videos, they don't feel that the people are being paid for their opinions, and it's more believable. So the second type of video that people watch are the features and options. Now, my wife and I own an Odyssey. I think she's one of the rare individuals that watch the entire DVD on the accessories and options that comes in the car. So I thought that was very interesting. I know there are people out there that love to consume this sort of content. So, features and options. That may be like a 5-minute video about the Bluetooth. It may be about navigation. It may be about the control system, the infotainment system. It could be any number of things, right? So we see those videos scoring high on YouTube and other places. We see walk-around or walk-through videos also scoring very high. And those can be walk-around videos that are produced by the manufacturer. Now Honda, we're lucky. Honda puts out some wonderful assets. Mother Honda has some of the best video assets, photography assets. You guys are in great shape. We used to see walk-through or walk-around competitions. I can remember back when I was 10, 11 years old. My mother had all these VHS tapes. And the VHS tapes were walk-around videos, product videos for product knowledge. And they used to do national competitions with the salespeople and then bring them out. And she used to compete in walk-arounds. And I mean, they knew everything. They knew the wheelbase, they knew horsepower, they knew the weight of the vehicle. It was really impressive. The product knowledge was amazing. What I see now at a lot of the dealerships that I go to, and I hate to say this, but I do see younger salespeople, and the product knowledge is not necessarily there like it used to be. So as a result, we see consumers jumping online and they're watching a lot of these walk-around videos, and they're being influenced by them. So something to keep in mind when you're talking to the dealers. We also see that searches for pictures are up 37%. When we say searches for pictures, that's people going to Google and typing in like pictures of new Civic, pictures of 2016 Civic. Now, we see that 80% of these image searches are taking place on mobile. Why is that? Well, we think one of the things that's happening is people are driving down the freeway, or they're in a mall parking lot. They see the new Civic, and say, the sexy taillights, the redesign. Wow, that's a sharp car. I'd like to see more pictures of that car. I'd like to see what the inside of that vehicle looks like. So they're Googling images on the go. It's very interesting. And then driving down the freeway, maybe they spot a car that they like. And who here texts while they drive or Google stuff while they drive? None of you do that, right? And nobody's ever checked their email on the way to a meeting? Right? Never. All right. Awesome. So, after the which car is right for me research, we see people moving into the can I afford it moments. So now they've determined this is the best car, and now they've determined that it's right for them. Now they want to know if they can afford it. So they start doing research into the price of the vehicle. Now one thing that we've seen is that the searches for MSRP are up 25% year over year. We also see that a lot of these searches, 70% are taking place on mobile. And we see a high percentage of those are taking place in the dealership. We see that beyond just searches for MSRP, we see that they're also searching for their trade-in values. Trade-in value is also a determination of whether or not they can afford it, right? A lot of times that's going to be their down payment or at least a portion thereof, unless they're upside down. So we see that that search for trade-in values at an all-time high. 50% of that is taking place on mobile. So now they know that it's the best car, right? They've had those micro moments. They know that the car is right for them. Now they know that they can afford it. The next thing that happens is they start researching where they should buy the vehicle. So with Honda, there's a pretty good saturation in the larger markets of Honda stores. And even in some of the suburbs, a lot of times what's happening is consumers are saying, should I go with my local small dealer or should I drive into the city to try to get a better deal? Right? If you're in a suburb market. If you're in an urban market, maybe there's 3, 4, 20 Honda dealers within a half hour, 45-minute drive. So they start researching, they start looking at things like DealerRater, they start looking at Google reviews, Yelp reviews of the dealership, they start looking at the online reputation of these dealerships and how they're presenting themselves. We also see them searching the inventory of these dealerships. We see that inventory searches are growing 4 times faster than overall vehicle interest searches. What does that mean? That means that people searching for Basque Red Honda Accord LX, those searches are going 4 times faster than people just punching in Honda Accord. They're actually searching for vehicles to see which dealership has the vehicle that they've now imagined themselves owning. We see some interesting things in the purchase cycle, where if someone Googles Honda, we've determined through a study with Polk, also with Google, that they're about 6 months out from making a purchase. They haven't landed on a brand yet. So maybe they're searching Honda, they're searching Toyota. So they're 6 months out. We see that if they search Honda Accord, they're getting a little closer, it might be about 3 months out. We see once they add color and trim level, they're 7 days out from purchasing. Why is this important? As marketers, I definitely want to take that long view. I want to make sure that we're getting in front of the consumers. But Honda is doing a great job with their Tier 1 advertising of getting the information about the brand out. Right? A lot of dealers don't have the wherewithal to advertise 6 months out. Right? With digital marketing, we can advertise, we can get a customer in the next 7 days. So that's really our strike zone, is people that are on an inventory search, being within that 7 days of a purchase. That's the hot prospect that we want to get in front of. They're going to buy now. We need to make sure that the dealers are getting their inventory out there, right? We see that 1 in 3 shoppers use their mobile device as part of their purchase. That's pretty strong. They're not just driving down to the dealership and walking in and saying, hey, I saw your great commercials on TV, that's why I'm here. So 1 in 3 located or called a dealer from their mobile device during their purchase. I don't think that really surprises anyone. So now they know which car is best. They know it's right for them. They know they can afford it. They know that they want to buy it. Now they're sitting down, they're at the table, they're desking a deal. What we see is that people then move into the am I getting a deal moments. So now they're at the dealership, they're on the car, they're working a deal. One of the things that I like to do for fun is desk deals at dealerships. So I have a few stores that will actually let me go in their store and sit behind the desk. I have a few of the stores that I'm in that will let me take ops on their floor. Why do I do this? Well, A, I get a kick out of it. My wife doesn't like it when I do it, because if I take a deal, I start working on a deal at 6 o'clock at night, and it takes 3 hours, 4 hours, I don't leave the dealership until the front 2 wheels hit the pavement. And so she'll say, oh, you need to get home, hey, I'm working a deal. But she gets it. The reason why I do it is because I need to have knowledge of the mindset of the consumers. Right? So what I notice people doing in the dealerships that I'm at is when the salesperson is coming to the sales tower, and now most of the Honda stores that we're in on the West Coast have done the remodel, so they have a glass tower, and you can actually see what the consumers are doing. We see them doing this. As soon as the salesperson gets up, we see them doing this. What are they doing? They are using their mobile device to look up pricing at competitors. We see 50%, half of consumers right now are using their mobile devices while they're at the dealership buying a car. What are they doing? They're seeing if they can get it cheaper 10 miles down the road. That's what they're doing. They're going to sites like the one I hate called True Lies, True Car. it's funny, but we actually witnessed this in the stores. I shouldn't say it's funny. It's actually very serious. So it's important that your dealerships know that this is taking place. So now that we kind of have familiarized ourselves with the 5 moments that take place, is everybody kind of with me so far? You notice that I'm not giving you guys anything that you can't understand, right? So we analyzed one specific case study. We just picked one at random out of the group, and we followed her 900 interactions from her first indication that she was interested in purchasing a vehicle till she actually purchased a vehicle. Everything was tracked, right? So we were able to then break those down into different categories. I actually was a little bit surprised by this 900 interactions. If you would have asked me prior to this report, I would have said, I don't know, 60, 70 interactions to me would have seemed high. But I'll walk you through this, and you'll see that 900 interactions is not only not an anomaly, it's actually pretty standard in this day and age. So I'd like you to meet Stacy. Stacy is married, mother of 2. She found out that she is expecting. That was the trigger for them getting a new vehicle, right? People purchasing a new home, that's also a trigger. It's known that a high percentage of consumers will purchase a car within 8 to 12 months of purchasing a new home. So she had a mid-size SUV. She only had room for 2 car seats for herself and her husband, and some good cargo room, which turns out was very important to Stacy. So she goes into the market. She starts on her journey of these 900 plus interactions. Out of these 900 plus interactions, we saw that 71% took place on her mobile device. Now, for those of you that are married, I know in my household there's a lot of this goes on in bed. And my wife loves to shop online, and she doesn't buy anything without doing research. I mean, she's reading the reviews. She's going to different websites. She's making sure that the price is right. She's making sure that it's the best product. She's a lot like Stacy. So we've instituted a thing now in my house that we call airplane mode in the last month or so. Is everybody familiar with airplane mode? When you get on an airplane, you can get into airplane mode. Productivity hack that one of my mentors, Darren Hardy, taught us a few weeks ago down in San Diego was airplane mode. It's not just for airplanes. It's easy to get bombarded by everything that we have going on. So one of the things that we've started to do at my company is we'll go into what we call airplane mode. And we all put our phones in airplane mode. Whenever we're in a meeting, we turn the phone off when we're in the room, and we focus. It's amazing what you can get done if you focus for 1 hour, 2 hours on a project. I mean, it's phenomenal. So now, just as a side note, that might be a productivity hack that you guys want to utilize. So, Stacy had 71% of her interactions were mobile. We saw that she did 139 Google searches. That might seem like a lot, but 3 or 4 Google searches, maybe 10 Google searches a night, you do that a couple times, do that a dozen times, you're up there. We saw that Stacy watched 14 YouTube videos during her sales cycle. We saw that she looked at 89 images of different vehicles. We saw that she had 69 dealer interactions, whether it was reading reviews of local dealers on DealerRater or Yelp, or whether it was visiting the dealership website, going to different pages in their website. We also saw that she had 186 manufacturer interactions. Those are manufacturer websites. We're looking at images that were served up from the manufacturer's servers. The reason why I think this is because a lot of the dealers, right, at the tier 3 level, they're not doing a phenomenal job of making sure that all the information is on their website. So at Passing Lane, one of the things that we do for our Honda dealers is we pull every single asset. We pull every video, every image. We We've got the breakdown for every trim level. We build out our dealership sites to mirror the manufacturer site, because we don't want people to have to go out and search for that information about that trim level, because then they're going to land on the manufacturer's site. So for the last 17, 18 years, I've had a store that has another Honda Point 4 miles down the road. So if someone puts in the right zip code, they're going to be sent to the other Honda dealer. Right? Which isn't that bad. I'd rather have them go to another Honda dealer than maybe a Toyota or a different brand. But as I've said, one of my mentors owns this dealership. So for us, we want to keep a customer when we've got a customer. So I think that the 186 manufacturer interactions, that's about a 3-to-1 ratio. I think it's because in her market, the dealers did not have enough information on their websites. So she had to go search manufacturer websites. Here's what's really interesting. Stacy looked at 14 brands. 14 different brands. Then from there, she narrowed it down to 6 that she said that she actually considered. And in the end, she chose between 2. We saw that at the end of her purchase cycle, she ended up purchasing a new SUV. Full size this time, rather than mid-size. Had a sliding mid-row, which she said was important to her for easy access to the third row. She said that number of seats in cargo room was the #1 deciding factor. Now, had I not seen all this data and you only showed me the first slide and the last slide, I would have said, this all makes complete sense. Stacy went from a mid-size SUV to a full-size SUV. It makes me like, duh, right? But we happen to know that Stacy spent a lot of time looking at minivans, right? So if one of those moments would have gone the other way, she might have ended up in a minivan. So we now are getting a better, broader picture of the consumer behaviors that are taking place during the sales cycle. And it's interesting. And I get a kick out of it. So when you're talking to dealers, and now that we know how important this is, right? I'm going to give you some terms, some simple keywords, or what I like to call bullshit buzzwords. Because most of these terms are used to, I shouldn't say most of them, but in certain instances we sit in front of digital marketers that use these terms to speak over people's heads. And that's when I get pissed off. Because they want to move the conversation down a path where they're the experts, right? And I don't want any of you in this room from this day forward to feel like you're outgunned when you sit in a meeting or when you're viewing something that a dealer asks you in terms of digital marketing. It all rolls back to one thing: selling cars, right? You ask any of the digital providers how many cars they're going to sell, how many leads are they going to generate, things like this. If they know the answers, okay, now we're good, right? You know, if I'm going to do business with someone, I want to know things like references. So I'd say, just take it back to base level stuff. I talk to some of the owners that I speak with. They've owned their stores 20, 30 years. Multi-millionaires that own Gulfstream jets. Very successful guys. They're all really humble, right? Does anybody? Oh, you have one with an ego. That's rare. That's rare. No, I'm kidding. So it's always interesting to me that these men that are multi-millionaires. I've got guys that are net worth 100 million plus, 200 million plus. I just don't understand this digital stuff. That's why we hired you. One of my guys brought me in last year to audit a $7.5 million marketing budget, just digital, $7.5 million. Their overall budget is $70 million a year in the LA market. They give me 1%. They offer me 1% of their digital spend to audit what their current provider was doing. Because I know that I'm kind of championing this cause of putting dealers in control. So I said, Lee, if you could come out and review this budget, that'd be phenomenal. So I reviewed the budget, and there were some keywords in this report that they had given that I didn't understand, and I thought that was funny. So I saw that they were using some abbreviations that that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. So I thought that was funny. These are the base level ones that you should familiarize yourself with. And they're pretty easy to remember. So these are ATRs. Anybody here know what an ATR is? No? It's because I made that shit up. I made it up on Tuesday morning, prior to our first presentation. And that's what a lot of these companies do. They just make up abbreviations, and then they're like, you didn't know what that was? What was the feeling that you got when I said, does anybody in here know what an ATR is? Did you feel good and confident about yourself, or did you kind of lean back on your heels a little bit? Man, am I supposed to know? I don't know if I'm supposed to know. No, you're not supposed to know. There is nothing wrong with not knowing all of the terminology in an industry that you're not in, right? Except where we're moving towards is everyone who's in the auto game is now in the internet game. Obviously, Honda felt strongly enough to fly me out here and pay me to be here all week and train you guys. So, knowing that, right, these are some abbreviations to remember. That's what ATR is. SEO just stands for search engine optimization. That's optimizing the website so that it shows up in a search engine. It's just what it says. Search engine marketing is basically marketing that takes place on search engines. It's like buying keywords. That's SEM. PPC is paid per click. PFP is paid for performance, which this is my favorite type of campaign. When it's done right, pay for performance. Now we have to be careful because there's a couple of companies out there. There's one, I believe they're called Automotive Advantage. And they come into markets and they have a program that's $20,000 to do an email blast. And they guarantee that your dealer will sell 40 cars. What they do is they only go into markets where they have an email address for like everyone in the entire city. You can see where this is going. So for 20 grand, they email everybody in the entire city. And then at the end of the program, they go back and they say, oh, well, here's the 40 customers whose email address we had on file that wasn't in your dealer management system. So there's our 40 cars. And we've got stores that do 200 to 300 cars a month on average. And on the months that they've run these programs, they still do 200 to 300 cars a month. So they're saying there was no lift in sales. If you truly sold an additional 40 units, I should have hit 240. I should have hit 340. So that's one caveat about these pay-per-performance programs, but these are my favorite when they work right. That's when the dealer is paying for the performance of the campaign. They're paying for the lead, or they're paying for the sale. That I love, and this is the space that we operate in. And I'm going to show you guys some techniques on how to really funnel anything down in a pay-for-performance campaign. You've got CPC, that's cost per click. It's just what it sounds like. How much does a click cost? CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions. That one's a little bit tricky. In finances, M stands for 1,000. MM stands for million. For most of us, M in this room, if you saw an M, you'd think it was a million. So they borrow that from the banking industry. So CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions. And CMS is basically the content management system. You hear that get thrown around a lot. Maybe they fired a service writer and they go in and delete them off their website. They do that in their CMS. That's where they manage their content on their website. And then DMS. Everybody in here familiar with the different DMS programs out there? I kind of threw that one in there just as like a softball gimme to show you that DMS, if you said that to anybody outside of the industry, they would say, oh, that means, and then they would feel like, whoa, right? I'm not sure what that means. Should I know what that means? Well, you guys all know what that means because you're in this industry. And I'm familiar with all these terms because I'm in this industry. These are all very easy to understand once you know what they stand for. If I say I'm running a PFP campaign with a CPC of $3, you'd go, wow, that guy knows what he's talking about. But I don't have any idea what he just said. Right? So one of the things that I would ask that you do, anybody throws anything out there, just take a breath and say, what the hell does that mean? Right? I maybe don't say hell, but that's what I would say, what the hell does that mean? So I'll run you through a few more terms. Target market, that's basically our target audience. That's basically who are you targeting with the ads. You always want to know what the target audience is. Because we are not trying to advertise to 12-year-old boys watching Nintendo cheat code videos on YouTube, right? A lot of these campaigns, though, that are based on impressions, that are not based on performance, they just blast as many ads out there as they can. They don't target an audience. So your target audience is basically, who are you going after? So how do we target audience? We do that based on behaviors. So a behavior may be, did a search for Honda, did a search for Toyota Camry, then did a search for Honda Accord, right? Somebody starts performing these sort of behaviors online, it's a high indicator that they are going to purchase a vehicle or that they're doing research, right? So we call those behaviors. But it's not anything wild, it's just your online behaviors. What are you doing? How are you behaving online? That term gets thrown out there a lot. One of my favorite bullshit buzzwords is algorithm. So, algorithms have been around for a few thousand years. And the first algorithm that we know of was written in Greece. I won't bore you with that. All you need to know about an algorithm, if you ask someone about their algorithm in digital marketing, they'll say it's proprietary. Only the engineers know. That's their way of bullshitting. It means that they don't have any idea what the algorithm is, right? It's proprietary. We can't give you that information. That's how we make our money. It's bullshit. They don't know what the algorithm is any more than you or I do, right? But I'll tell you what an algorithm is. An algorithm is simply a recipe. We all know what recipes are, right? An algorithm tells you, it looks at all the data, or it looks at all the input, right? Has everyone in here heard garbage in, garbage out? Here you go. Talk about that a lot. That means if you put garbage into an algorithm, you're going to get garbage out of the algorithm. So it's kind of like making a hamburger. If you don't use the right ingredients, if the meat's not 80-20, 20% fat, the hamburger won't be as flavorful. So that's just a tip. If you're going to make hamburgers this summer, you'll thank me later. So an algorithm basically takes ingredients, the ingredients go through the algorithm, and out comes a hamburger. That's all that is. It's a recipe. It's a formula. It's not anything mysterious, right? So one of my favorite case studies in a company in recent years using an algorithm of behavioral targeting to go after a target audience comes from who else but Target. So Target has done a really good job. Now, not only are all of our online behaviors being tracked, a lot of our offline behaviors are being tracked. So where you go is being tracked by your mobile device now. You installed that flashlight app for free. That flashlight app is reporting back to companies like InfoUSA, your everyday locations, how often you go get gas for your vehicle, what gas station do you go to, what restaurants do you visit, how frequently. You have a device ID, you are being targeted based on those behaviors. So in the online or on the offline world, we all use the same credit card all the time. So let's say you keep going to Target and you're using the same card every time, but you don't sign up for a loyalty program because you don't want to be tracked. Then one day your wife says, "Hey honey, I got us a Target card so we can save a nickel on every gallon of gas," right? The next time you go in and you slide that rewards card and you slide your credit card, they know all the purchases that were made on that credit card when it was anonymous. Now they've associated that with a customer ID. Now they know everything that you've purchased in the past. Now they start to look at a pattern. So Target brought in a great data analyst, and what Cole looked at was how could they target expecting mothers, right? Because expecting mothers, new parents, are some of the best consumers because we've got a new human being now in our house, and we have to buy all the stuff that we didn't have before, right? And new parents are typically operating on like 3 hours of sleep, so we're just walking through stores like, oh, it's a girl, so we get the pink one, right? And they just part with money left and right. So it's a very lucrative market to go after. So they wanted to know how they could figure out who the expecting mothers were first trimester. So what they looked at was they had thousands, tens of thousands of expecting mothers and fathers that had registered for their baby registry. The other thing that they had was historical data. They didn't need a crystal ball to tell who was expecting and who wasn't expecting. What they did was they analyzed the data backwards and through machine learning, They were able to pick up on a few behaviors that may be indicators. So what they found was that if a young woman purchased cocoa butter, calcium, magnesium, and zinc supplements, and a purse big enough to double as a diaper bag, they had an 87% pregnancy score. They were 87% sure that this individual was pregnant. So that sounds great, right? Well, problem. There's a Target store, and a guy comes in, and he wants to talk to the manager. This guy is pissed off. He says, "Damn it, you Target. I can't believe you. You just sent all these coupons to my house. I got a 16-year-old daughter, and you're sending her coupons for diapers and formula and a gift card. And are you trying to tell her to get pregnant? What's the matter with you? This is ridiculous." And the store manager did what every good customer service rep should do. He apologized. One of the things that I like to do is trust and verify. But he apologized and said, I'm sorry. I don't know how this happened. It won't happen again. I'm going to notify corporate that you don't want to receive these type of emails or these type of mails. It's not going to happen again. Now, interesting side note, the CEO of Costco and I actually went to the same high school, different years. But we spoke at the same conference a couple of years ago, and I was able to kind of kick some ideas off of him and see what his 10,000-foot view was. Costco has got to be one of the greatest stores, because you go in there for toilet paper and you walk out with $400 worth of stuff you didn't know you needed, right? So one of the things that he shared with me, and I didn't know this, but you get a different coupon book than your neighbor gets, because they're tracking your behaviors, like they were tracking this young woman's behaviors. So about 2 weeks later, after the guy went on the tirade, the manager gets a call, and the father says, "Sir, I owe you an apology. Turns out there's been some things happening in my house that I was not aware of, and I'm going to be a grandfather." Did everybody kind of see where that story was going? Turned out his daughter had went in. She was worried about getting stretch marks, so she'd gone in and bought the cocoa butter cream. She read online that she should stock up on zinc and magnesium, calcium supplements, so that she'd have a healthy baby. So Target knew before her father did. So he apologized, because it turned out that she wasn't the little princess that he thought she was. It turned out she'd be primed to be on that new MTV show that we all love, 16 and Pregnant. Maybe not all. I've actually never seen the show. I've heard of it. I get the premise. I saw the title, and that's all I needed to see. So you've got behaviors, right? So they're tracking behaviors. How do they track your behaviors? Well, they store them in these little things called cookies. So what a cookie is, and some of you are probably familiar with this because you clear your cookies in your browser. A cookie is just a little text file that has maybe an ID in it, maybe any information that you submitted to the website. It all gets stored in a cookie. So these cookies are then used as you go to different websites. Ad networks read the cookies. Then they say, what's the best ad based on the behaviors stored in all of the cookies on this person's device? It's the best ad to serve up. So they're going to use those cookies to decide which text ads to show you. They're going to use those to show which display ads to show you. And display ads, it's just a fancy word for banner ads. I've been doing this since 1995. Back then we used to call them banner ads. And then everybody started to hate banner ads, right? So you go into dealers and you go, "Oh yeah, we're going to run banner ads." And they go, "I don't like banner ads." So we changed it. Now we call it display. Or we're going to run a display ad campaign, right? And they go, "Oh, that sounds great. That sounds good. Let's do that." It's just a new term for an old ad format. It's banner ads. We've all seen them. You're on a blog. It's the square in the middle of the article you're reading. It's at the top or the bottom. So the way that we determine which ads to show you is based on the cookies. Now, if you've cleared your cookies, we might use the device ID. If you're browsing in private mode and you think you're not being tracked, we're going to use the IP address of your Wi-Fi. We already know who you are because you use that Wi-Fi not in private mode. Then you switch to private mode, and your device and your browser is no longer tracking you, but our ad networks are. because all your internet traffic is going across a public network. So we're tracking your IP address. And it's always interesting when I go visit people to see what kind of ads that they're being targeted for. You know, I catch different stuff. And if you look at the banner ads that people were being served up, you can get a really good idea of what their mindset is and what they're into. So we do a lot of remarketing when we talk about cookies. For remarketing, someone comes to a website and they get tagged, right? They get tagged with a cookie. They visit a vehicle-specific page and then they leave the website. Maybe they looked at a Cobalt Blue Civic, right? Now they go to a third-party website. Maybe they go to joesbarbecuerecipes.com. The ad network, our ad network, is going to go through and it's going to find the right ad for this person to serve up. We're going to base that on the specific vehicle that they looked at. Now for our dealers, if they looked at a Bass Red Accord, we're going to show them a Bass Red Accord on that barbecue website. If they look at the Cobalt Blue Civic, they're going to get a Cobalt Blue Civic on that site. So what happens is then hopefully they click on that ad, they come back to the website, we add that behavior to our cookie, and so on. So we know how many times that they visited, what information are they leaving. So we use that information to build dynamic ads. So with a dynamic ad, it basically means that we can change out the tagline across the top, the vehicle that they're showing, and the description. So ideally, everyone's not seeing the same ad, right? We're going to show them an ad that's unique to what it is that they're interested in. When we talk about ads, we usually talk about impressions. Impressions is just how many times the ad was served up. It does not mean, let's get this very clear, it does not mean that the ad was seen. If I serve up 3 of your ads down here below the fold, that's 3 impressions. If that's 3 impressions to the same person. Doesn't mean that they saw it because it was below the fold, they never scrolled. They never scrolled down and saw those ads. So don't confuse impressions with how many people saw the ad. How many people saw the ad is what we call unique impressions, right? So with unique impressions, that's how many individuals saw the ad, right? Well, didn't see the ad, but had the ad served up, because again, it could be below the fold. That's why I don't like to advertise for our dealers based on impressions. Although there are some good programs out there that are based on impressions, you just have to use a formula to try to figure out what the results are going to be. When we talk about unique impressions, that's the number of people that the ads were served up to. Now, you can serve an ad to one person once. You can serve the ad to 3 people 3 times. One of the analogies that I use is if you had 10,000 impressions, what was the frequency, right? If you had 10,000 ads, but the frequency was 100, right? Then you only reached 100 people. I don't want to show somebody an ad 100 times. So frequency becomes important, dialing that down, right? We usually will shoot for a frequency of about twice a day. We feel through our testing that that's gotten the best results. So frequency is how many times one individual is going to see that ad in a given time period, whether it's a week, month, day. The next thing we talk about is clicks. They clicked on the ad, right? And we talk about cost per click. How much did that click cost us? Was it $3, $5, $7, $10? What was the cost of that click? Pretty easy, right? Clicks equal dollars. Now, clicks are like impressions. We don't just want to know clicks, we want to know unique clicks. How many actual different individuals did this drive to the website? So, in CPM, you're not going to pay for clicks. You're going to pay for impressions. Which one seems better at this point, right? I just want to pay per click. I want to pay for the click. Just give me the click. I don't care how many people the ad was served to. I just want to know how many unique clicks did we get. But your cost per 1,000 impressions, or your CPM, is basically 1,000 ad serves. And how much did that cost us? Pretty easy. How are we going to know how many ad serves and how many clicks and where the visitors came from? We're going to look at something called analytics. Now, for most of you out there, when you talk about analytics, we're going to be talking about Google Analytics. It's the most prevalent and widely used analytics platform. Analytics just tracks things on the website like how long did the people come, how many people came, what pages did they look at, what was the outcome. One of the terms that a lot of people throw around will be bounce rate. What a bounce is someone came to the page, maybe they didn't see what they were looking for, and they left. But if they went directly to the contact page, got the phone number, and then left, well, the bounce rate's higher, but you've got people actually going and getting a phone number, so bounce rate's not always a bad thing. One of the stories I like to tell is about one of our dealers in the Vegas market. He's from New York, and he really plays up the New York thing, and plays like a connected guy. You go in his office, he's got pictures of him with James Gandolfini from The Sopranos. He's got signed posters from Al Pacino, and Godfather posters in his office. And I remember the first day I get the call. My sales guy had been working with him for about 3 months, had not closed the deal yet, and he said, "Hey, Frank wants to meet you. And if you come out and meet Frank, we can close the deal." And I said, "That's fine. I'll come out to Vegas next week." So after we got through the niceties and found out that we liked each other and we probably could do business together, he says, "I just want to ask you one thing. What do you think about a 90% bounce rate?" Now, most people that don't work their solid would say, "Oh, 90% bounce rate, that's bad. Ooh." I didn't do that. I said, if you've got an ad program that you're running that has a 90% bounce rate, but it delivered 100,000 people to your website, that's still 10,000 people that stay. Now, if out of those 10,000 people that stay, you converted at a 3% rate, you'd have 300 leads. If you converted those at a 10% close ratio, you'd move 30 units. So I'd ask you, how much did you pay for that campaign that had the 90% bounce rate? And how many cars did we sell? And if the math works out, I'd say we do it again, regardless of the bounce rate. And he laughed. He said, "I like you, kid. We're going to be in business a long time together, you and me." And yeah, great guy. I have a lot of respect for that man. He's a great client. And I've learned some things from him. He's learned a few things from me. And I enjoy it. He knows a lot. He's been in the car game since the early 70s. Those are the guys that I really like to spend time with. Guys that they call old school. Which I think old school just means you can cuss a lot. I don't know. It seems to be the difference between old school and new school. Yeah, and a lot of these guys they don't have MBAs and they didn't go through dealer school, which is what I run into with a lot of the big auto groups. You talk to the GMs and the managing partners, and they've got MBAs. They've gone to dealer school. It's a different breed now than what it used to be. And I enjoy having conversations with them, but the conversations with the guys that are old school are more colorful, and I find them to be more entertaining. We've all got dealers like that. One of the other things that your analytics is going to track is going to be a goal. At least should be tracking, right? Is goals. So a goal could be they looked at a specific vehicle page. They looked at the contact us page. After goals, we want to look at conversions. So conversions are like this. Conversion just means how many people, when you're speaking with someone worth their salt. Conversions is out of all the visitors, how many people submitted a lead? That's a conversion. Now, what some of these other digital providers like to do is throw other stuff into their conversion ratio. Oh, they looked at a car, that's a conversion. It's not a conversion. It's a vehicle detail page view. But they throw other numbers in there to kind of inflate things, because if they tell a dealer, oh, we had 350 conversions, what the dealer heard was I got 350 leads. It's not the same thing, unless your conversions are only leads. So you always want to make sure that when we're talking about conversions, we're talking about leads were submitted. A lead was submitted. Once we have a lead submitted, then we want to know what's the contact rate. A good contact rate is somewhere around 70%. I don't know why that is. I would think that it would be closer to 100. So we're talking about people that went to a website and submitted a lead to the dealer. About 7 out of 10 times they can get a hold of that person. So with the contact rate, what we look at then, if we're able to contact 70%, that'd be good, and we would say that the lead quality is strong. So you want to look at a couple of things with lead quality, right? What was the contact rate? We want to know if they were able to contact them, were they able to set an appointment, right? Once they set the appointment, they need to do something else. They need to actually show up for the appointment, right? So you want to know what the contact rate was. You want to know how many appointments they set, then you want to know how many appointments actually showed up. And then the magic thing that it all boils down to, right? What's the close ratio? How many cars did we actually sell? So turns out 11% is the average. Suzanne and I work together and poll dealers throughout the country a couple of weeks ago, so we have fresh data for you guys. Turns out 11% is the average, and we had quite a few dealers that were right on the button with 11%. I like to use 10% because it's a little bit lower and I'm slow, so it makes the math easier. So the close ratio is really, that's where the gold is. That's where the money's made. That's where the rubber hits the road, right? They bought a car. So it all boils down to one thing, right? Selling cars. So when we're looking at an ad program, how can you determine how many cars an ad program is going to sell? Well, I'm going to teach you the passing lane formula. And with the passing lane formula, what we look at is results are sales. That's all we care about. Don't be swayed by somebody talking about their algorithm is going to serve up 1 million impressions. If they say that to you, go, that's great. How many unique clicks are we going to get? You're going to go, oh, they're going to be on their heels. And like we had happen in our meeting, they might say, I don't know. Or I can't share that data. Okay, I can't share my money. I can't share the dealer's money with you. I can't share results. What a lot of these dealers are having happen right now is they have the digital provider will show up and just start throwing reports out, right? Reports on top of reports on top of reports. Now these GMs, digital marketing isn't what they need to do, or this GSMs. That's not what they do every day. So do they read these reports? No, because they're already buried in reports. They're already buried in reports. They got other things that they need to look at. This is one thing on a list of 10 things. So these reports that we see are always just very confusing, right? So they'll give them spreadsheets on top of spreadsheets. So that's why I'll get called in and come audit someone's budget, right? And they'll hand me the spreadsheet and go, I don't know how to read this. Can you read this? Or they go, it looks good. What do you think? And I'll look at it and go, okay, what's our cost per lead and what's our close ratio? That's all I need to know. And if they can't tell me that, I can usually figure it out. So with the account that I audited last year, that was $7.5 million, it took me 2 minutes to do the audit. They offered me $70,000, it took me 2 minutes, using the formula that I'm going to teach you today. So what this provider had done was they had this thing called a CPA, right? They had an abbreviation that they made up. And what a CPA was a cost per action. So their cost per action, I want to say, it looked good, it was like $7, $7 or $8, somewhere in that range. But I don't care about actions. An action could be, they looked at a photo. So if they looked at 100 photos, that'd be 700 actions. So they're inflating the actions and then taking the overall marketing budget, dividing that by these millions of interactions that they had, and they were able to say, well, our cost per action is $7 or $8. Well, I was able to look at the middle of the spreadsheet where it showed lead cost. Now they buried this in like 3 pages deep in the middle column of one of their spreadsheets. The cost per lead was $570 with a 10% close ratio. Does anybody know what it cost them to sell that car? $5,700. Bingo. I talked to some dealers here on Tuesday, or some reps like you guys, and they said that their profit is somewhere around $2,000. The store that I was in, it happened to be a little higher. It was about $3,700. You can't spend $5,700 to make $3,700. You can't do it very many times. That doesn't scale. That's what I like to call the opposite of business, right? They say it takes money to make money, but I don't think that's what they meant, right? Ideally, your return is going to be higher than what you outlay. So I told this dealer, I said, sir, I don't think I'm going to need to take very much time to audit this for you. Your your cost per sale on this, based on national averages, is $5,700. And he like blew up. What? Where do you see that? How do you know that? You got to be kidding me. It goes right here in the report. They've been giving you this report every month. Nobody knew how to read the damn spreadsheet. Because it was one of these confusing spreadsheets where it was like from column A, row 10, then turn to page 16. They don't have time for that. By the time he turns to page 16, and somebody buzzed him and they said, hey, we got a problem going on. One of the porters just rear-ended somebody or whatever happens in the dealership. Okay? We got 100 things going on. Reading spreadsheets on a digital marketing campaign, usually not one of them. So, yeah, I mean, spreadsheets, not something that most people are fond of. Donna here is one of our account executives, and she doesn't just sit here looking professional, doing PowerPoints with me. She actually reviews campaigns and sets up campaigns just like I do. We've got a few more account reps just like her. Well, trying to be just like her, I should say. There's only one Donna. But, we find spreadsheets fun, and we could only find one funny spreadsheet joke on the entire internet. And it's an old picture of Bill Gates, if you don't recognize him. So one of the things is colleagues, the information I'm going to give you right now, a lot of my colleagues, they just hate it. They hate it when I give this information out. Like the Pandora guy, he started raising his voice and he was very upset, and that's not indicative of Pandora. I found out he's no longer with Pandora. Nothing I did, no calls I made. But colleagues hate it. I've gotten into shouting matches. You've got to imagine, they bring me in to audit a $7.5 million campaign, and I'm able to show that they're selling snake oil. That company just lost a lot of money. I don't know what their rate was on that. I'm sorry, what their profit was on that. But I'm going to guess it was pretty high. So you can see why a lot of people in my industry, they don't like me. I've been shoved by digital guys. I've really had serious arguments when it comes down to this. Because I'm the guy in the room that'll call bullshit. I'm the guy in the room that'll say, dude, you've been taking X dollars for X, Y, and Z. You took this guy for $100,000. What are we doing? And the dealers are like, yeah, what'd you do that for, right? And I'm the guy that pointed it out. Not real popular. But I don't care. My tribe is not, I don't consider my tribe to be digital marketers. I consider my tribe to be the guys that I grew up with. The guys who treated me like they were a father figure. The guys who treated me like they were my older uncle. That's my tribe. So I akin it to being like a magician. I'm like a magician that stands on the side of the stage telling how all the tricks are done. Hey, there's two ladies in that box. They're not really cutting her in half. If I ruin that magic trick for any of you, I'm sorry. There's usually two women in the box. One's got her legs out on one side of the box. But the trick that these guys are doing is they're making the dealership's money disappear. And they're not paid to entertain. So I'm going to give you these 3 magic questions that you can ask. This is what it all boils down to. The 3 magic questions are, first, what is the cost of the campaign? So what's the cost? The second question, how many leads is it expected to produce? And then on those leads, what's the expected close ratio? Some of you may recognize those 3 questions. We did a random survey, a random poll of some of the DSMs throughout the country. We were able to get answers to these 3 questions. So what's the cost? How many leads? What's the close ratio? If you know that, then you can determine your cost of sale. So lead cost is very important. So we take the cost of the campaign. Once we have those 2 answers, right? We take the cost of the campaign and we just simply divide it by the number of leads. Then we know our lead cost. Does everybody follow that one? So if we spend $10,000 to get 10 leads, what's our lead cost? $1,000. Doesn't make sense. Right? So if we take our number of sales, we are then able to, or we're able to figure out sales, I should say, by just taking the leads and multiplying that by the close ratio. So 100 leads with a 10% close ratio will get you 10 sales. So you've got sales is basically leads times close ratio. And once you know sales, the number of sales, right, what you do is you just take the number, you take the cost of the campaign, a $10,000 campaign to sell 10 cars, would give you a COS, or a cost of sale, of $1,000. Everybody memorize that? Everybody's got that now? Just kidding, I didn't expect you to memorize it. Some of you wrote it down, that's awesome. Couple things. So we have a program that analyzes campaigns for you. We developed a mobile app that will analyze a campaign for you. You ask these 3 questions when you're in the meeting, or you can do them retroactive. You can ask to see their digital marketing, you can ask to see their pay-per-click results from the previous month. You can run it through the campaign analyzer that we built. Normally we charge for this service to analyze someone's campaign. We also charge for access to our tool. But if you guys take out your mobile phone, everybody's got their mobile phones, right? I see a good percentage of you guys taking notes on your mobile phone, I'm going to assume. You're not on Facebook, right? She's smiling. She was on Facebook. She's checked in. So if you crack open your browser on your mobile device, and if you go to passinglaneformula.com, what we've done is we have turned off registration for today, and you'll be able to just log right in if you have an AHM email account. Suzanne is actually going to email everyone out links to the program so that you can access it in case there's any troubles today. But if you go in there and you run through it, you'll notice that first it's going to ask you for your email address, and then it's going to ask you if you're at a dealership and you're working a campaign, just put in the campaign name. That's going to help you remember. We've all got dealers that we work with that are really receptive to our ideas. So if you think of something like that, right? And then if you go through the next question, it's going to start asking. I should have pulled out my mobile phone and walked through it with you. But it's basically just going to give you places to put in the answers to those 3 questions. So you don't have to memorize those 3 questions of what is the cost of the campaign, what's the cost per click, what are the expected clicks. It'll just walk you through the process. And they might think you're on your calculator. If you hold it like this and they can't see what you're doing, they'll go, why is he asking me these questions? Is he putting everything in a calculator? I know what's he doing. Is he writing this stuff down? Are they going to hold us accountable? And then what it'll do, then you don't have to memorize the national averages. Right now, we actually did update it to be in line with the numbers that we got from the poll that Suzanne and I did. So it's going to factor in an 11% close ratio. It's going to factor in a 3% conversion from website to lead. You'll notice that we have the ability to put in a higher conversion, and you can also put in a higher close ratio. We saw some dealers that had as high as an 18% close ratio. If you're in one of those stores, rock star. One thing that I like to do is always err on the side of low. Under promise, over deliver. So if they say, oh, I've got a 20% close ratio, that's great. But just for sake of argument, let's base this campaign on 11% or 10% close ratio. Let's base our conversions on 2 or 3%. Because you'll also have website providers that'll say, oh, we convert at 20% on our website. And that's hogwash. So what it'll do then is it'll generate a report. You can look at the report. It'll tell you all the information that you need to know about the campaign. And then there's a button. You can email it to yourself. You can email it to a dealer. You can download the PDF version of the report for the campaign analysis. And if you show a digital provider one of these reports, they're going to go, wow. Okay, I guess I'm going to be held accountable on this one. So they might strive to hit the mark a little bit more. Now, typically at this point, I would talk to you about some of our products. I'm not going to do that this morning. There's no big sales pitch. But if you guys like some of the things that you learned today, if you open up your folders, on the left side you will see the reports from Google that we put together for you to review at your leisure. There's the report about the car buying moments, as we like to call them. There's the report on Stacy's 900 interactions. So if you're bored on the plane, you can thumb through that again, refresh. In the right-hand pocket, you'll see a list of some of the products and some of the services that we provide our dealers. If any of you have questions, feel free to stay behind for a couple of minutes and ask me any questions that you guys have. I think we probably have time for 2 questions. And then I'm going to get you guys out of here to get some water, go to the restroom. Does anybody have a question they'd like to throw at me? Everybody remembers 100%? Okay, awesome. Feel free to stand afterwards and come up. I think that time is our most precious asset, each and every one of us. Your time should be looked at as your most precious asset. Lost money can be regained, lost time cannot. So I'd like to thank you for your time this morning. I'd like to thank you for paying attention.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, guys.